I hired a private investigator to catch my wife. She exposed her affair with her boss and blew up their lives for good. I'm in my mid-30s and have a young child with my wife. Ever since he was born, she has been distant and short with me, and it's gotten worse over the last 3 or so months. She has made friends without kids and started going out more. When I ask to be included, she always has an excuse to not bring me along. Not hard when one of us has to be with our child. When I brought up how I feel, she told me that she feels like she's lost her identity through the process of being pregnant and then breastfeeding and being a mom. She feels like she just wants to get out and be around people who don't have kids and live her own life for a bit. As part of this, she'll go out until 2 a.m. and take weekend trips without me. It feels like she's withdrawing from me, and I know she's not always being honest with me. I don't go through her phone, but I've noticed that she doesn't leave it out ever, even taking it with her to the shower, which is something that she never used to do. I don't think she's being unfaithful, but the thought has certainly crossed my mind. I asked her directly about this, and she got very upset and told me that this isn't about that. I told her that I want to be a part of what she's going through, and she told me that I don't have the passion for the things that she wants to do. She just needs me to find my own passions and my own friends. I genuinely enjoy her main hobby, but when I try to tell her that, she insists that I don't enjoy it like she does and she just wants to be around people who love it like her. I feel like I'm losing my best friend of 15 years. My toddler is the lone light in my life. I don't know what to do, and I've been so sad. Relevant comments. You need to sit down with her and talk it out as many times and as long as it takes to get clarity. Her behavior is akin to spousal abandonment, and that's unfair. Her initial reason is understandable, but her way of meeting her needs is not. When you commit to a partner and family, it is a commitment to work through struggles together. She isn't doing that. Her taking her phone into the shower is bizarre. If she's hiding an affair, she needs to come clean. Secrets and lies are sentences to any relationship. You're linked forever through your child. Dig and respect have to be the baseline. You already lost her, but you are latching on because she's your wife and the mother of your child, which is understandable, tbh. I wish you would not tolerate this behavior. She is most likely being unfaithful to you, contrary to what she says. Red flags all throughout this entire post. You can do better, honestly. Also, it seems like postpartum, but that is for her to sort out with a therapist instead of partying it up with kidless strangers on some weird soul-searching adventure. Sadly, you may not be able to talk her into seeing that. She'll have to reach the conclusion alone. Good luck with everything. Update. Things have been off with my wife. We have been together for 15 years and married for 5. We have a 14-month-old, and things have been rough since he was born, with them getting a lot worse in the last few months. She's gotten face injections and has gone through weight loss that would point to substance use. She's been protective of her phone and generally dodgy. I confronted her and was completely gaslit to the point that I set an appointment with a therapist because I thought I was being paranoid and insecure and had to figure out why I felt the way I did. She went to the mountains yesterday, saying that she needed a weekend to herself and wanted to go snowboarding and get a full night's rest away from the fussing baby. It didn't feel right. She went back on birth control without discussing it with me. She went and got face injections, she went and got waxed, and asked me to put the board rack on her roof despite claiming she was the only one going. There were too many red flags for me to not hire a PI. The PI immediately secured photographs and video of the affair. Turns out she's effing her boss. They are up there until Sunday, probably still effing right now. I feel like a fool. We've all hung out multiple times. I'm so mad that she could blow up not just our lives but the life of our 1-year-old. I'm stuck having to deal with her because of our shared son for essentially the rest of my life. I contacted a lawyer to file for divorce and plan to confront her when she gets back. But the divorce isn't likely to process for over a year. This is going to suck for a long time. Relevant comment. Realistically, I would follow what a few have said, which is, yeah, get a lawyer involved, but don't go scorched earth yet. Do not confront or tip your hand when she returns, and I know that is very hard to do, but I would wait and talk to your lawyer. Start to really see what they want you to do. Maybe, despite the audio, video, and pictures, they need more. If you tip your hand earlier, they may get even more secretive or cut you off completely, or make it tough or feel impossible to get more info or data. I would listen to the chorus, so, which is DNA test your 14-month-old. It's a precaution no matter how sure you are. It's not just to see how deep the betrayal goes, but also to have more evidence for the divorce. Then, get an STD test. I'd also, and this is of course a thing with the lawyer, so listen to them. But if you don't tip your hand early, you could then plan to find a way to humiliate her with the time-honored tradition of serving the wayward, surprising her at work or a family function, etc. I would say, too, if you haven't started, quietly change around finances or close joint cards, removing your name off the joint accounts. If you tip too early, it may be harder to do this, considering how she has treated you thus far. I feel she would try to also get ahead of this. Always check with the lawyer, but the minute she is served, I'd also prepare. Perhaps have the day off so you can tell the boss's wife or partner, if they have one, making sure they have the info. B. Get ahead of this with her family. Again, clear with the lawyer. But what should you tell the in-laws? Tell them, though, as she will try to spin it that you are the bad guy. C. Post that you are leaving her or divorcing her via social media, as she will try to vilify you there, possibly as well. Look into GRY Rocking and 180. Some lawyers say to block the wayward, or you may try for mental health. Yet, I've heard it's best not to do that only because they may text you things that may make it better for you in the divorce. Cheaters usually can't help but make it worse for themselves or provide more context, which helps your case. I know if you do this it would be painful, but it could help. I'm sorry to hear this, OP, but I wish you the best. Update. I found out that my wife was having an affair with her boss. For context, we have been together for 15 years, married for 5, and have a 15-month-old son. I found out while she was going on a girls' trip that she actually went and picked up her boss and spent the weekend in a flat. I had been suspecting infidelity for a while and even confronted her about it, but was completely gaslit. I thought there was a problem with me. I made appointments with a therapist to figure out why I had so much trouble trusting my partner and couldn't get the feeling that there was something wrong to go away. When she left for her trip, I made the decision to hire a PI. I thought that the apology for the betrayal of not trusting her, while getting validation that I was just being paranoid, would be easier to deal with than not knowing. After not even 45 minutes on the clock, the PI had photos and video of her picking him up, them very casually kissing, and finally ending the night going into the flat. I got this confirmation on a Friday, and she didn't come home until Sunday morning. The whole time she was gone, she texted and called, acting like nothing was up. I had a small breakdown after finding out the first person I called was my therapist. Having an established therapist is one of the silver linings of the gaslighting. The second phone call I made was to my sister, who lives in the same state but a while away. She came up and was there for me, helping me to stabilize. My next thoughts were about how to move forward and set myself up to be out of the house but still in a position to have my son for at least 50% of the time. I'm going to outline my actions quickly, in case God forbid anyone else finds themselves in a similar situation. Action 1. I contacted my hunting buddy and asked him to take my rifles and bow. I didn't want any claims of an unsafe space from my wife, citing the rifles being in the house, even though I keep them in a safe. 2. I bought and installed a nanny cam for the confrontation. I didn't want any claims of DV or abuse to come down to he said, she said. I live in a one-party consent state, so this was a no-brainer. 3. I found a furnished month-to-month rental that could accommodate working from home and had 2 bedrooms. It also needed to be in a good enough area that there could be no objections. 4. I found a short-term flat to bridge the gap between then and when my month-to-month lease would start. It had to check the same boxes as the month-to-month rental. 5. I talked to a therapist. As crazy as it sounds, figuring out what you want in this situation feels impossible. Are you willing to allow your spouse to steal your ability to live with your son for 50% of his life? Between 1 and 18, that's 9 years of not seeing him. Not seeing the decision to leave as your decision is so much harder than you'd believe, and it effing sucks. I laid out the conversation to be 3 to 5 minutes to avoid escalation. I laid it out as, I know about the affair. I'm not ready to talk. I'm moving out while I figure out a path forward. We need to have a conversation about how we are going to handle custody of our son in the short term while we figure out a path forward. play it through in your mind or out loud, and do that through a number of expected responses. Expect them to be angry, sad, mad, or in denial. Try to work it around to be your fault, but don't try to win. You cannot lose. This is way more important. If there is a kid or kids that you plan on fighting for, don't get petty. Don't set their stuff on fire. Don't go out of your way to piss them off. You are going to have a relationship with this person for the rest of your life, through your relationship with your son. Stuff is already going to be really hard. Don't make it harder, and don't give them any ammunition to bring up or use against you. Unfortunately for me, I didn't expect the no response. My wife sat there and said nothing. No, I'm sorry. Not it was a mistake. No coping to it, just a blank slate. In the days since, I have continued to see my therapist and identified the gaslighting and emotional abuse that had been taking place in the months leading up to discovering the affair. This is apparently very common in instances of infidelity, as it gives the cheater justification to their actions and helps them sleep at night. Even now, I feel my wife trying to manipulate me into taking her back and working it out for the sake of our son. I don't trust her, and what's worse is I don't trust myself to talk to her about what happened. I'm afraid of getting gaslit again and feeling like the whole thing was my fault. I set a time on Monday with a marriage counselor to finally have the conversation on what's happened and how we can try to move forward as co-parents for our son. She has already tried to claim that this was the first time and a mistake. I don't believe her, but also don't have proof that she is lying. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that on Monday. I can't imagine a path forward that involves staying married to her. I also can't imagine forfeiting being there for half of my baby's life without being able to look them in the eye when the time comes and tell them that I tried everything that I could to be there for them. This effing sucks, and this is going to suck for a while. Don't cheat. Update. A while back, I wrote about catching my wife in an affair with her boss, let's call him Benny, and her friend Chrissy. I've had a crazy amount of DMs asking me if I was all right and asking for updates. So, I'm going to drop this last post before deleting the account. If you want the background, you can check my post history. I'm not going to rehash it all again. Also, understand that this is not a complete history. It's been a long 8 months. Very shortly after I moved out, I had a friend tell me that Chrissy went out to dinner with his wife and the wife of another friend of mine who were her friends. He said that she got drunk, told them what happened, and then when they weren't sympathetic, invited Benny out with them. He said that it was a whole scene, and she was all over him. She later admitted that she went and spent that night at his house but swore up and down that they didn't sleep together and spent the night on his couch. She swore that she just felt alone and like none of her friends cared about her and didn't want to be alone at the flat at the time. We were switching off staying at the marital home when it was our days with our son, and the other would F off to a flat. We went to see a therapist at that time. Therapy went the way of straight trickle-truthing. She would wait to see what I knew, cop to only that, and swear there was nothing else. She swore that the time I caught her, which she spent an entire weekend with him in a flat, was the first and only time. She cried and begged for me to believe her and give her another chance, and take her back. She said that he was old and she didn't find him attractive, called him short, and said it was just a mistake. She maintained that it wasn't about him but rather what she was going through, and he was just a symptom. She said that she'd do anything. I said she had to tell me the truth, and she refused to budge from her original story. So, after hitting a brick wall in couples therapy, and her refusing to tell me the truth about what happened, I said I couldn't keep going. I signed a long-term lease and tried focusing on myself, with the understanding that we would try therapy again in a few months. We continued to split custody 50-50, and Chrissy made a legit effort to try to help me settle into my new place. We started going through mediation for a divorce. Why start mediation if we were planning on trying therapy again? What we said out loud was because it takes forever, and if therapy went the same way as the first time, we didn't want to be stuck in limbo longer than we had to be. A couple of months into mediation, the mediator asked us if we had seen a therapist that specializes in infidelity. We said that we had seen a couples therapist but not a specialist. She said that she had some referrals if we were interested. Chrissy said she was, and that she'd be willing to go if I would agree to it. I agreed to it as well. With how far we got through mediation, it felt like it was then or never going into seeing the specialist. I had given our marriage a 5% shot at surviving the year, but Mr. Throwaway, how could you not be 100% done after knowing that she was still lying about the affair? The plain answer is, I wanted to believe that she would show up and tell the whole truth and ask for forgiveness for what she had done and for not being able to come clean the first time. If she had done that, I think I would have seen a path, albeit a long one, back to try to make our family whole. Also, the prospect of missing half of your son's life when they are so young is difficult to face down and just say that's 100% off the table. So we had a joint introductory session with the specialist, and then a week later an individual one. It was after that I was given information that Chrissy had still been seeing Benny. I didn't believe it. I looked into it and checked with a few other sources, and then was presented with indisputable evidence that she not only had continued to see him but had brought him around our son multiple times. I haven't mentioned it, but we had an agreement that we would communicate to each other and get sign-off if anyone outside of family was going to be introduced or hang out with him. She had broken this agreement. I was crushed. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand it. Why agree to see the specialist if you've been seeing Benny? Why not just file and move forward? Felt like some sociopath shit. I flat out asked her if she had been seeing Benny in an accusatory tone, and she said that she had. I asked if she had brought him around our son, and she straight lied and said that she saw him when she didn't have our son and after our son had fallen asleep. I asked why she would agree to see the specialist if she had been seeing Benny. Why not just go through with the divorce? She said that she didn't want our son to grow up in a broken home. I lost it. I said some mean shit that I honestly can't remember, but it was along the lines of her being just like her mother. I hung up. Then the fishing began. She texted and asked questions and tried denying without being specific about what she was denying. You jumped to an awful lot of conclusions. There, she tried gaslighting me into thinking that it wasn't a big deal. I thought you'd be pumped to not have to go through any more therapy and make me be the one that called it quits. I honestly am appalled that you've taken the stance that you have. I started thinking on why I was so upset. I had said to myself that the odds of therapy working out and her coming clean about the whole thing were low. This was the likely outcome. I wondered why I would agree to go back, despite being told that she spent the night with him, and again after the first time that I caught her. I started taking long walks at night when I didn't have my son, to think on the whole thing. I reflected on all this for a while and came to the conclusion that I was upset that I felt like she chose him over me, and that made me feel worthless. I ignored a lot of the shit, and in an attempt to not feel worthless after a few more walks, I came to the conclusion that that just wasn't true. She begged me to take her back on her terms, and I had refused her. She didn't choose him. She was stuck with him. Benny is sending his kid from his last marriage off to college. If he sticks around, he'll be collecting Social Security by the time Chrissy and my son are out of the house. He's supposed to trust her, knowing how they met, and she's supposed to trust him, knowing that infidelity doesn't bother him. Plus, imagine the anxiety that would wash over you when people ask how they met. She took away any doubt that moving forward with the divorce is the right thing. I'm stuck co-parenting with her is a challenge, but I get to do that from a place of having seen her, and I can go into it with eyes wide open. If this seems disjointed, it is because I wrote this over several sittings, and I did it for myself to help with introspection as much as anything. But by the time I was done, I figured there wasn't any harm in changing the names and giving a last update to those that reached out with support. Even though I didn't respond, please know it was appreciated. For those that only reached out to ask for updates out of what I assume to be morbid curiosity, I recommend some long walks and a bit of introspection. To Chrissy, if you see this, please know that you are just like your mother, and you're going to end up just like her. Relevant comments? I hope you find a path forward where you no longer care about Chrissy as a person at all. You're not there yet, obviously, but if you make it one of your goals in therapy, you will get there. Congrats in advance for finding your peace and trust in yourself. This was a very insightful read. What you accomplished by having your walks is brilliant and phenomenal. How you untangle everything and find your honesty with yourself is just a beautiful thing, and it will be one of the best gifts you ever give your child. The really amazing thing is that when we are in a relationship with a cheater, who is deceptive, manipulative, undermining, and gaslighting, the cheating is never the hardest thing. The hardest thing is the way that they covertly undermine us and break us apart into little pieces very quietly. It's not with what they say. It's the things they are doing secretly. And then they come home, and they convey that sense of those things to us, and we feel afraid and uncertain. It harms us when we are away from them. We begin to repair, and that's when we see how much damage was done to us. But now, you are going to raise a child who is not mainstream. That this is the way to be treated and to treat someone. This is the pivot point. You are an honest, well-intentioned person who doesn't mess around playing games. You will do fine like the above commenter. I'm really impressed by your insight and the trajectory of your path forward to healing. I'm sure it will continue to be tough for a while, OP, but I'm also pretty dang sure you're going to be just fine. Cheating is bottom-level despicable. Down with Mr. Doctor and RP. Why it destroys everything. Two people their entire lives, for a lie they think is love. It destroys their partners, their self-esteem, some never recover, some commit suicide. It destroys their reputation. Not even their friends will trust them around their partners. It destroys finances. Sometimes jobs are lost. The extended families and friends are fragmented. It is like an atom bomb. A cheater or liar will degrade to a lower class and, frankly, almost always cheat again as the issue is inside of them. It is a character flaw. This was mostly for Chrissy, if she reads it. For you, do some more counseling and move on with your life. You will recover and love again. Completely agree with you, the pain it causes, especially when there are children, is irreparable. It should be punishable by law.